Just a reminder, this video is sponsored by GetTheTea.com. Natural organic tea can help you lose some weight. Clean, fresh, crisp, tasty tea. Go to GetTheTea.com. Make sure if you decide to try this tea that you let them know that Tracy Bean sent you, please. That's GetTheTea.com. Try some of this life change tea. Sorry. This is what happens. This is what happens when you're completely unscripted. Welcome, guys. How are you? Good to see everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. How's the volume? Good? Should I make myself louder? There we go. How's that? Better? Welcome. Afternoon. I wanted to get this out of my system now because I did a poll today on Twitter about Michael Flynn and the case and, if everybody gets what's going on and understands it. And for the most part, people do. So I'm thrilled about that because it means that our intrepid investigative journalists are doing a good job of explaining what's going on. I'm sure that Sidney Powell's appearance on Sean Hannity's show yesterday on the radio, as well as in the evening, was helpful to folks. I have a little bit of an allergy thing going on, so if you hear me cough, that's why. So I always have an allergy thing going on lately. So it's great that folks understand, for the most part, what's happening with this story. And it makes it so that then I don't have to spend a ton of time going over the minutia of what, why, when, where, and how. And I can get into some of the details of what's going on today. That being said, we had today the motion to compel unsealed in the case. Big thank you to TechnoFog, who's always right on top of this stuff. You can find him on Twitter at techno_fog. Amazing analytical account in terms of legal stuff. Just a great guy. I think it's a guy. You know what? I don't even know if it's a guy or not. I just have gone on assuming it's a man. Is that sexist of me? I don't know. Whatevs. Guys. Does it really matter, guys, at the end of the day? So we got it's somewhat redacted, very, very minimally redacted. Motion to compel the production of Brady material and for an order to show cause, okay? And what happened the other day was we got this, which is the brief in support of the motion to compel. And I did my entire podcast when I was alone without my Frank. When I was alone without my Frank, I did an entire podcast on just this document here and what it meant. And so you guys can find that. All of you guys can find that on the Dark to Light podcast list, Apple, iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, radioinfluence.com, and listen to that. It's an hour breakdown of this, which was filed in support of this, which was filed under seal because of actions that the government took. It was required that this was filed under seal, and then at the hearing yesterday, they determined that now this can be released. So here we are. And what did I want to do here other than go through the list of things that Sidney Powell is asking for on behalf of her client, General Michael Flynn? Wowie. And you know what? Nearly everything makes sense. There's a couple of them where I don't understand exactly how it relates, but that's just me. I'm not, all-knowing. So let's go through really quickly to the list of, it says here, Michael T. Flynn requests this court order the prosecutors to show cause why they shouldn't be held in contempt for their repeated refusals to comply with the Brady order and their constitutional, legal, and ethical obligations. Compel the government to produce to Flynn evidence relevant and material to his defense. Compel the government to produce to the defense any additional information that's come to the attention of the Inspector General, FBI, or any other member of the DOJ that bears on the government's own conduct or its allegations against Mr. Flynn, and order the government to preserve all emails, documents, texts, and other material. She says here, as explained more fully in the accompanying brief, it's the government's duty to produce all evidence material to guilt or to punishment, irrespective of the prosecution's good or bad faith. And because they're supposed to pursue justice, not just convictions, its responsibility to produce Brady material is a grave one, and she goes over what exactly it means. Indeed, the court entered an initial standing order to produce Brady material on December 12th, 2017, and then updated the order to produce that material on February 16th, 2018, making it clear to the government its duty to produce exculpatory evidence exists independently of Mr. Flynn's guilty plea. So even though he pled guilty, the judge is saying it doesn't matter if there's evidence that exonerates him, the government must provide it. Yet, listen to this. This blew my mind. When the undersigned new counsel for Mr. Flynn requested a detailed list of outstanding Brady material immediately upon taking over from prior counsel, Mr. Van Grack, who is the attorney from yesterday, glibly responded a few weeks later on June 26th, writing the following. The government has exceeded its discovery and disclosure obligations in this matter, including those imposed pursuant to Brady v. Maryland, and the court's standing order dated February 16, 2018. Additionally, in the plea agreement that your client signed on November 30th, 2017, your client waived the right to any further discovery or disclosures of information. As such, the government does not anticipate providing additional information in response to your letter. What? Basically, go pound sand. We're not giving you anything. And Sidney Powell basically goes on to talk about how she asked again on July 12th, and Van Grack again refused the request, again suggesting that Mr. Flynn's plea ended the prosecutor's Brady obligation while also touting the government's supposedly extensive production. But Powell is saying there was no extensive production here. They're talking about here that assertions that Mr. Flynn was an undisclosed agent of Russia or agent of Turkey. That's what, wait, I skipped a sentence. Sorry, guys. Oh, here it is. In fact, just last week, Van Grack produced an additional 330 pages that included information that any reasonable attorney would understand as Brady evidence, in light of the special counsel's investigation and assertions that Flynn was an agent of Turkey or Russia. So in other words, again, they provided a bucket of 330 pages of material to Sidney Powell and Flynn's defense team, and there was exculpatory information inside of there, but the government said there was none, which is now compelling Sidney Powell to say over and over again, they don't even know what is exculpatory, so how are we going to trust them to make the decision if they handed us over exculpatory information and they didn't even realize it? I hope that makes sense. To everybody that's talking to me in the chat right now saying thank you guys, and I'm glad that you're here. You rock. All of you rock. So that production that they provided, the 330 pages where they said there was no exculpatory information, also showed that Flynn passed his polygraph test in 2016 and they renewed his security clearance. And this is what I found interesting here. This was at the same time that the FBI seems to have been investigating him under the pretext he was an agent of Russia or Turkey. And the new production showed that James Clapper refused to assist in the investigation for Mr. Flynn's security clearance, which Flynn received after a full investigation despite his actions. So James Clapper said, I'm not investigating this man for a clearance. I'm stepping away. And they did it without him, and he still got it. She says, yet again, in the status report filed today, the prosecutors exude arrogance in their flat denials of requests for clearance and the production of material. Then it says, this is what they're asking. This is what they're asking for. 1, hold on a second. Didn't want to subject you to that. 1, a letter delivered. Listen to this. Listen to this. I don't remember this. There's some things I think I'm just forgetting. Unless, I don't know, no one's mentioned this so far, so I'm assuming this was already out in the sphere. A letter delivered by the British Embassy to the incoming National Security Team after Donald Trump's election and to outgoing National Security Advisor Susan Rice. The letter apparently disavows former British Secret Service agent Christopher Steele calls his credibility into question, and declares him untrustworthy. What? 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 Again, the British Embassy delivered a letter to the incoming national security team after Donald Trump's election and to outgoing national security advisor Susan Rice. I'm reading it again. And the letter apparently disavows former British Secret Service agent Christopher Steele, calls his credibility into question, and declares him untrustworthy. The Brits worked to help Steele. So someone's saying they tried to warn you, but no. This would be absolutely massive because this would be during the transition that went over. And that's huge. And I should make a tweet about it now. But I don't want to. Share this if you want. Just retweet it. I'll do a thread later. This is big. I mean, and remember, one of the things that Papadopoulos said, and I really don't think it's this letter, but one of the things that Papadopoulos said was that he was given a letter by the UK to deliver to Trump. Do you remember that, guys? That's what happened. You know what? Okay. Hold on. Hold on. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this right now. I'm going to sing to you because I like to sing to you. Bear with me. I shouldn't do it that way. As per Sidney Powell, the British Embassy, right? Embassy. Is that spelled wrong? My goodness. Yeah. Sent a letter denouncing. Bear with me, guys. I'm sorry. I think this is important. I should tell you this beforehand. Denouncing Christopher Steele and stating that he was untrustworthy. What was the rest of it? Calls his credibility into question and calls him untrustworthy. You guys aren't here for this. I'm sorry. Okay, there's that. Back to the document, shall we? So that's just the first one. That's just the first thing in the list. The footnote down here is even more crazy. The most recent production demonstrated that Mr. Flynn briefed the DIA on the people he was likely to meet on the Turkey project and the subject of that scheduled meeting before it happened. These prosecutors are still suppressing evidence that he did so on all of his foreign contracts from the time he left the DIA, which would mean there was no Farah case. Holy moly, this is such an abhorrent, disgusting, gross, of justice. Miscarriage. Complete miscarriage of justice. If you are typing in the comments of the Periscope or the YouTube, ridiculous disinformation, moderators or myself will probably mute you because it's just distracting. I'm just telling you. Okay. They want the original draft of Mr. Flynn's 302 and 1A file and any FBI document that identifies everyone who had possession of it, parts of which must have been leaked or may have been leaked to the press, but the full original has never been produced. This would include information given to Sally Yates on January 24th and 25th, 2017. They want the whole thing. They want it all. And they're trying to identify who leaked to the press. All documents, notes, information, FBI 302s, or testimony regarding Nellie Ohr's research on Flynn, which we haven't seen yet, and any information about transmitting it to the DOJ, CIA, or FBI. So Nellie Ohr apparently worked on stuff in regards to Mr. Flynn. I read the Nellie Ohr document that was provided to Bruce Ohr. I didn't see Flynn in there, but it was several hundred pages, and I may have missed it. If not, we haven't seen this yet. Listen to this. Listen to this one. This was already submitted before the hearing yesterday. I just need people to understand that the judge already had this in his possession. It was already on the docket. So this isn't like after the fact now she's going back and saying, well, I want all of this. This was already there. She wants all payments, notes, memos, correspondence, and instructions by and between the FBI, CIA, or Department of Defense with Stefan Halper going back as far as 2014 regarding Flynn, Svetlana Lakova, the woman who was accused of having an affair with him and is now suing Stefan Halper for defamation, Mr. Richard Dearlove of MI6, and Professor Christopher Andrew, connected with MI5, and Halper's compensation through the DoD Office of Net Assessment as evidenced by the whistleblower complaint of Adam Lovinger, addressed in our brief. We talked about that a couple of broadcasts ago, who Lovinger is, what he did. They tried to hose the guy. He uncovered all these crazy payments to Stefan Halper, brought it to the attention of the powers that be, and the powers that be basically threw him in jail or tried to get him on a criminal charge. And were successful, but omitted the fact that their investigation found he did not violate the law, and then omitted the word "not" from the papers in order to hide it. This includes David Shedd, former deputy director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, Mike Vickers, both of them CIA officers, James Baker, former DIA Director Stewart, former DIA Deputy Director Doug Wise. New names here, folks. New names here. And the DIA Director of Operations. This should also include any communications or correspondence of any type arising from the investigation or alleged concerns about Mr. Flynn that contained a copy to as a blind carbon copy or a copy and was addressed directly to DNI Clapper and his senior staff, CIA Director Brennan and his senior staff, or to FBI Director Comey and his Deputy Director at McCabe and senior staff. Why is the blind carbon copy important? Interesting. Because if these guys are scheming together and blind carbon copying Brennan, Clapper, Comey, what does that let you know? They had whatever information was in there, and the people that were talking about it, other than the sender, did not have that information. That is interesting to me right there. That little piece, the or BCC, this really rings my little beans bell. This is in the docket of the Flynn case. It is not Judicial Watch. Okay. The Flynn 302 dated January 19th, 2017, mentioned in the Mueller report. Again, folks, remember, we have the Mueller report. There are footnotes. In the footnotes, there are 302s referenced, not only from when the investigators on the Mueller team interviewed people, but also from other 302s they used in their investigation. Remember that. The January 19th, 2017 Flynn 302 is mysteriously missing. All and unredacted page-struck text messages. Mr. Van Grack's October 4th, 2018 letter asserts, quote, "To the extent the text messages appear to be incomplete or contain gaps, we do not possess additional messages that appear to fill such gaps." Who's we? The government should be compelled to identify who we refers to, where the originals are, and whether any of the gaps have been filled or accounted for. All documents, reports, correspondence, and memoranda, including any national security letter or FISA application concerning any earlier investigation of Mr. Flynn and the basis for it. Again, the Mueller report. The existence of these earlier investigations was disclosed in the Mueller report. See volume 2 at pages 24 and 26. Why is this important? Because amazingly, Sidney Powell is finding this stuff in the very report that they wrote about the case that that he was a part of, Flynn. So they obviously have this stuff. It's in the report of their investigation that was provided to the Department of Justice. How could they not supply Flynn under this Brady order with information about himself that appears in a public report? And remember, Comey writes in his memo that President Trump Reince Priebus asked him if there was a FISA on General Flynn. He chooses to write that in a memo. He then takes the memo and gives it to people at the Department of Justice at the FBI. So that what happens? They read it too. So there you have a confidential conversation with the president's team translated into a memo, which Comey then hands over to the people that he wants to keep a copy of it. Interesting. Gosh. All transcripts, recordings, notes, correspondence, and 302s of any interactions with human sources or Oconus laws test against Mr. Flynn since he left the DIA in 2014. Do you guys remember Oconus laws? Nick Falco, good old Nick Falco, found the Oconus laws text message in the Peter Strzok Lisa Page text messages way back in the day. Oconus meaning I'm gonna just pull it up because I don't want it's basically overseas, across across the way, outside the continental United States, across the pond. This is a long list. It's a long list. The unredacted Page Strzok text messages, as well as text messages, emails, and other communication to, from, or between Andrew McCabe, James Comey, Rod Rosenstein, Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr, John Carlin, Aaron Rouse, Carl Gaddis, Andrew Weissman, Tashina Gohar, Michael Steinbeck, Blank, and Zainab Ahmad regarding Mr. Flynn or the FISA applications or any surveillance, legal or illegal, that would have reached Mr. Flynn's communications. All evidence concerning notification by the Inspector General of the DOJ to the Special Counsel of the text messages between Page and Strzok, including the actual text of any messages given to the Special Counsel and the dates on which they were given. Although the Inspector General notified Special Counsel of tens of thousands of the text messages between Strzok and Page no later than July 2017, this is a question I asked yesterday, the prosecutors didn't produce a single text message to the defense until March 13th, 2018. Sorry about the pronunciation. I'm not great at it. All evidence of press contacts between the Special Counsel office, now here's where the press comes in, including Andrew Weissman, Miss Ahmad, and Mr. Van Grack, from the departure of Strzok from Special Counsel team until December 8th, 2017, regarding Mr. Flynn, i.e., were they leaking evidence to the press to bolster a case against Flynn so that they could get a plea out of him, or if he decided not to plea, an indictment. Again, circular use of evidence. We leak something to the press report it, then we bolster what we leak to the press by saying it's an independent source. The press, I'm sorry, but Donald Trump is right. President Trump is right that the fake news is the enemy of the people because they're acting as a rogue intelligence agency rather than the arbiters of what is supposed to be truth in this damn country. They're acting like a fifth wheel to the government, unelected bureaucrats acting as an intelligence function. Okay. Where was I? Unredacted copies of all memos created by or other communications from James Comey that mention or deal with any investigation, surveillance, FISA applications, interviews, or use of a confidential human source or Oconus laws against Mr. Flynn. An unredacted copy of all of James Comey's testimony before any congressional committees. That's going to be interesting. The James Comey 302 for November 15th, 2017, and all Comey's 302s that bear on or mention Mr. Flynn. Again, this is the motion to compel Brady evidence that is now unsealed in the Flynn case that was filed previously. Any information, including recordings or 302s about Joseph... Oh, wait, hold on, I missed one. Notes and documents of any kind dealing with any briefings that Flynn provided to the DIA after he left the government. My sister is texting me that my daughter just accidentally took a bite of something she's allergic to. So I'm just trying to answer. I'm trying to answer her and do this too. Any information, including recordings or 302s about Joseph Mifsid's presence and involvement in engaging or reporting on Mr. Flynn and Mifsid's presence at the Russia Today dinner in Moscow, December 17th, 2015. Just make sure that you remember that meeting is where Halper started kind of festering this Russian agent nonsense, which was complete nonsense. But there's Mifsud yet again. All notes, memoranda, 302s, and other information about the McCabe-Strzok meeting or meetings with Vice President-elect or Vice President Pence. The meetings are referenced in the Mueller report at Volume 2, page 34. What is interesting about that... Remember why Donald Trump said that he was firing Flynn, or Flynn was resigning? It was because he lied to Pence. So if they can get their hands on this stuff, which will prove what McCabe and Strzok said to Pence about Flynn, we will know if he should ever have even had to have been in the position to have to leave at all. And I'm really kind of sort of interested in what Pence had to say. All of Mary McCord's 302s are interviews, including when she knew that Flynn did not have a, quote, clandestine relationship with Russia. Any Sally Yates 302s or other notes that concern Mr. Flynn, including treatment of her meetings with the FBI agents on 24th and 25th of 2017 in January, her meetings with anyone in the White House, and the draft 302 of the Flynn interview on January 24th she reviewed or was read into. In other words, what was she doing at the White House? An internal DOJ document dated January 30th, 2017, in which the FBI exonerated Flynn of being an agent of Russia. If they exonerated Flynn back that early, I really want to see that. Didn't know that existed either. Sarah Carter talked about that yesterday. All information provided by Kathleen Kavalek at the Department of State to the FBI regarding Christopher Steele prior to the first FISA. Very, very interesting too, because think about it. This should technically have all been provided to Michael Flynn before he even signed any plea. And also, as soon as the judge ordered Brady. Any and all evidence that during a senior attended FBI meeting or video conference, here we go, Andrew McCabe said, first we, Flynn, then we, Trump, or words to that effect. That's great. That's great. Now, does she expect to get evidence of that? No, probably not. But it's on the docket and on the record now. You guys don't hear me? Hello? The 2-page electronic communication that allegedly began the Russia collusion investigation. All information that underlies the several FISA applications, including any information showing that any of the assertions in the applications were false, unverified, or unverifiable. All documents, notes, information, FBI 302s, or testimony regarding any debriefing that Bruce Orr gave to anyone in the FBI or Department of Justice regarding Christopher Steele. Testimony, interviews, 302s, notes of interviews of all persons who signed FISA applications regarding Mr. Flynn or anyone that would have reached Mr. Flynn's communications without regard to whether or not they were approved or rejected. In other words, the 2-hop rule. She wants to know anything that can be provided about anybody who signed FISA warrants that would have touched Michael Flynn. She wants the information. That's the 2-hop rule. Think about the wide net that costs. All FISA applications since 2015 related to the Russia matter, whether approved or rejected, which involved Mr. Flynn or reached his communications with anyone. Information identifying reporters paid by Fusion GPS or the Penn Quarter Group to push Russia collusion communications regarding any stories about Mr. Flynn, and any testimony or statements about how the reporters were used by the government regarding Mr. Flynn. How the reporters were used by the government regarding Mr. Flynn. FBI 302s of KT McFarland. Notes of interviews on her own notes and text messages with Flynn from approximately December 27, 2016 until his resignation. It goes on. Any information regarding the special counsel and DOJ's destruction of the cell phones that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, after being advised of the thousands of text messages that evidence their bias, that has been classified or otherwise not available to the public from the published Inspector General report. Any information regarding blank, redacted, eradication of cell phone data, texts, emails, or other information belonging to Peter Strzok and Lisa Page that created the gap identified by the IG. Information about any parts of any polygraph exams failed by Strzok after Mr. Flynn was first the subject of any FBI investigation, authorized or unauthorized. This one here, number 32, ties right back into the article posted on Uncover DC last night by Brian Cates, where he talks about Joseph Pienka, the laser beam that's being focused on Pienka and Strzok by Sidney Powell, and the fact that Sidney Powell can basically say, the man who's accusing my client of lying is actually unable to pass a polygraph test and has lied multiple times to Congress and also to the Inspector General and to the FISA court. Brady or Giglio material newly discovered by the government and by the IG in his separate investigations in the last 2 years since all this started. A full unredacted and copies of the recordings of Flynn's calls with Ambassador Kislyak or anyone else that was reviewed or used in any way by the FBI or Special Counsel Office in its evaluation of charges against Mr. Flynn. In other words, what did you guys listen to make this determination? All of the FBI 302's notes and memoranda of James Clapper regarding Mr. Flynn and the cell phone and home phone records of Mr. Clapper and who? David Ignatius. Between December 5th, 2016 and February 24th, 2017. There is very clearly a strategy being spelled out here where Sidney Powell is detailing how the media played a role in bolstering a slanderous, incorrect, Joy Behar-like, fantastical attack against General Flynn in the press in order to bolster what was happening here next with this indictment, with the plea. Although not previously requested, the government should be compelled to produce unredacted scope memos written for the special counsel and any request by special counsel that mention Flynn or his son. Last night, Sidney Powell said that Rod Rosenstein expanded the scope of the investigation to allow the special counsel to go after Mike Flynn Jr. Completely unacceptable on no basis whatsoever. There was no FARA violation. There was no FARA case. I can guarantee you that Kian is going to get out of that case. I'm telling you they'll overturn it. This here is going to be the linchpin for so much. If they toss this for prosecutorial misconduct, I can guarantee you Flynn's former business partner is going to be running. He's on appeal right now, I believe, but he's going to be running to the courthouse to get his conviction overturned because this is absolute nonsense. And I'm sorry, I can't go on. There are in a weighted pile. I'm not convinced 100,000% yet. Stranger things have happened, and I trust Jeff Carlson and Brian. Brian goes overboard with his support of Rod Rosenstein, in my opinion. That doesn't mean I have to hate him. He just has a different perspective on the issue than I do. Jeff Carlson also supports Rod Rosenstein in his role in this and thinks that, and because of that, and I trust these guys, and I their work is really freaking good and very well done. And they're two people I read, and I know that I can feel comfortable that I'm reading the truth. So if they say so strongly that Rosenstein's a good guy, it's hard for me to just completely slam the door on it. However, I see a very large pile of evidence on the bad guy side. Then on the good guy side, I see like one or two things. And none of them are really his own doing, other than James Comey's recommendation memo. If you look at what Dowd said in his interview with Byron York about what Rod Rosenstein did in appointing the special counsel, how shocked everybody was, and what he did when people approached him with it. How dare you do this? How could you possibly do this? And you try to square it with what some other folks are saying. It just doesn't square. This is being broadcast to YouTube live right now at the same time as Periscope. It just doesn't square. Sorry. I just don't see it. I can't. He signed a FISA warrant. He said to Gates, what they're saying is in that FISA warrant is not what I signed. The Inspector General will do the investigation and come out with it. And then people say, well, there was this big, huge meeting or like send off with Barr and Sessions saying how great he was. And big deal. Like, what does that prove? I don't know. Big deal. Big deal. Anyway. I just looked at I'm looking at facts. If there's something that I don't know that is factually proven about why this guy is supposed to be such a good guy, let me know. I don't want speculation. I don't want theories. I don't want, follow the plan. I don't want any of that nonsense. I want factual information proving that Rod Rosenstein is anything other than what appears at this point to be a slime ball. And not for nothing, but I had a member of the Flynn family comment on my thread that I was on target when I said that. So I think they'd know. I don't know. FBI 302s and interview notes of Jim Woolsey, including notes by special counsel members of conversations with him about Flynn Intel Group, the Turkey Project, and his separate meeting with officials of Turkey after the meeting that was subject of the Flynn Intel Group FARA filing. All communications between Laufman, Heather Hunt, and any other member of the NSD regarding the FARA registration for Mr. Flynn and Flynn Intel Group, and notes, reports, or recordings of their interaction with Covington and Burling with regards to the filing and its contents. If you guys remember, when things started really going south was when Flynn refused to do something that the government wanted him to do in this other case he was supposed to be their star witness in. And that other thing was to lie and say that he filed a document fraudulently and he knew he was doing it fraudulently when he wasn't true. When he wasn't lying. In other words, he didn't know he was making that mistake. The government wanted him to say that he knew he was making the mistake. Flynn said, hell no, I'm not doing that. And this right here will tell us what kind of conversations were going on between his former attorneys and these folks at the NSD regarding Farah. This is important. This is really important. What role did that play? Unredacted notes of the blank and struck from the interview of Mr. Flynn on January 24th, 2017. I believe this says Pienka, but I'm not sure. The defense requests production of actual documents the government has referred to only in summaries. In letters submitted pursuant to the protective order, the government has admitted it possesses information in docs for which it has provided only summaries. Remarkably, it's refused to produce the actual evidence for evaluation by lawyers dedicated to serving the defendant's interests, as is required in our constitutional system. Therefore, Mr. Flynn demands the unredacted 302 reports and any notes or recordings in any form of the following meetings or interviews. He wants to see all of it. His lawyers may have been backstabbing Flynn. Yes. Former Deputy Director Andrew McCabe regarding Mr. Flynn, his calls with Ambassador Kislyak, members of the White House discussing those, and his discussions, planning session, and debriefing session with agents before and after the Flynn interview on January 24th, 2017. Recordings, notes, and memoranda by any and all persons who participated in the planning session for the interview of Mr. Flynn, at which it was decided the agents would not inform him that it was an actual interview or that he was investigation, so as to keep him, quote, relaxed. Horrible. Horrible. These persons include Bowditch, Jen Boone, Peter Strzok, Joe Pienka, Lisa Page, Trish Anderson, and Andrew McCabe. Notice all the rest of these people are gone, and this guy is still there and not an SES employee, which means his name will be redacted. Recordings, notes, and memoranda by any and all persons who participated in the debriefing session following the interview of Flynn, including blank, Strzok, Maffa, McCabe, Priestap, David Bowditch, blank, Trish Anderson, and James Comey. Former Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General Matthew Axelrod. Former Acting Assistant Attorney General Mary McCord regarding the FBI's decision not to give Mr. Flynn a Title 18, Section 1001 warning, and the decision not to re-interview him despite the general practice of the FBI to give subjects that opportunity. In other words, you lied to us, which he didn't, and they said he didn't. You're done for. Well, let me re-interview now that I know that I'm supposed to be answering this question. I could recall things better. No. Former Acting Attorney General Sally Yates regarding her opinion that the January 24th, 2017 surprise interview of Flynn was problematic and her lack of clarity of the FBI's purpose in investigating him. Stand by. Sorry about that. Sorry, guys. White House and transition officials regarding Mr. Flynn's conversations with Ambassador Kislyak. Michael Boston. I wonder if this is Bolton. Phil Oakley, Carl Pilgrim, Graham Miller regarding Flynn Intel Group and Mr. Flynn, and Brian McCauley regarding Mr. Flynn's desire to file Flynn Intel Group's FARA registration the right way with the DOJ. The entire report of the special counsel's interview of James Comey, provided in camera to the court but only summarized to defense counsel in the SCO's letter of December 14th, 2018. I want to see that too, because I want to know when James Comey told the special counsel that he had personal memos in a safe in his house. Personal safe in his house. And somebody's talking about Q. Funny, Q is the thing that puts you on the map. And now follow the plan is nonsense. No, let me clarify this for everybody right now, okay? I was doing this long before Q. I'm doing it long after Q, okay? And following some plan with no factual evidence to back it up is just plain stupid. My bad, but it is. If you can show me factual information for why I should trust somebody who apparently has done several absolutely horrific things to innocent people, then by all means show it to me. Otherwise, I'm not going to do that. Like, why am I going to hold somebody up that has completely destroyed this man's family for no reason and signed FISA warrants and started a special counsel investigation. I'm not going to just trust someone because I should just do it. I should just do it and damn all the evidence to the contrary. That's not being too big for my britches. It's being passionate about what I do. If you think that I'm too big for my britches, you don't have to listen. Sorry. That's my point. That's my status on this. That's my stance. That's it. Sorry. Not sorry. This prosecution and the circumstances surrounding it are unprecedented. The only way to achieve justice in this case is to provide transparency and the full disclosure of all information relevant to the defense of Mr. Flynn. Now more than ever, the government must be held to the highest standards as classically set out in Berger versus the United States. The U.S. attorney is the representative not of an ordinary party, but of a sovereignty, whose obligation is to govern impartially, is as compelling as its obligation to govern at all, and whose interest, therefore, in a criminal prosecution is not that it shall win the case, but that justice shall be done. For these reasons, Flynn requests the motion be granted, and then provides a copy of a motion all ready to go for the judge to sign at the end. So, really important things to come out of this. And again, this has been submitted already. The judge already had this when they had the hearing yesterday. Because my first thing was, oh my gosh, is this new? And then I realized that it was already filed previously. So there's the motion ready to go. The court has carefully considered the motion to show cause and to compel production of Brady and is ordered that said motion is granted. Hereby ordered to show cause while it should not be held in contempt for its violations of this court's standing Brady order. What'll happen now is the government has to respond to this. They have to do it by September 24th, I believe, at 12 noon. We'll get to see that response. Then by 10:15, if my memory serves me correctly, the Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, has to respond to that response. And then after that's all done, we have a hearing where we find out the results of all of this stuff. So, that's that. And that's how the cookie crumbles. I don't. If, again, I give it out to you guys. If you guys have something that I'm missing in terms of Flynn doing noble things with documents or court case documents or IG reports or something concrete that I can read that'll change my mind outside of just speculation, then fine. Otherwise, I'm looking at a pile that is just piling. It's just getting higher and higher of things that I just can't get past in regards to Rod Rosenstein. It's just a pile of things. And there was that leak, the 25th Amendment thing we talked about a couple weeks ago or last week, where I said there was a sentence in there that really bothered me that nobody else has really talked about. It seems like what we were doing is working. So that's that. Anyway, if you guys appreciate the work I do and you would like to become a patron, you can find me on Patreon at patreon.com/TracyBeans with a Z. You can find my PayPal at paypal.me/TracyBeans. If you guys are interested in supporting my media organization, Uncover DC, rather than me, you guys can go to uncoverdc.com/support and you will find a support button where you can support the growing, really, really awesome, amazing stuff we're doing over there. Wait till you see. There's so much stuff on the horizon for Uncover DC, and I'm really excited about it. So, thank you guys for being here. I'm not trying to be divisive. If you guys, whatever you believe, I don't mind. It's fine by me. No problem with anybody that talks about this Q thing, has followed it the entire time. I chose to stop talking about it very, very early on. It was interesting to me. I found it interesting. It turned into what I just stopped talking about it. Lots of cooks in that kitchen. Follow away. But I am going to present to you guys facts and data, and trust that Rod Rosenstein is okay because so-and-so says so is not good enough for me personally. And that's it. So have a great night, guys. And I will talk to you very, very soon.